Gonzalez whirled at the word, and his blade came up. He saw that Senor Zorro had drawn his sword, and that he was holding the pistol in his left hand high above his head. Moreover, Senor Zorro was chuckling still, and the sergeant became infuriated. The blades clashed. Sergeant Gonzalez had been accustomed to battling with men who gave ground when they pleased and took it when they could, who went this way and that and seeking an advantage, now advancing, now retreating, now swinging to the left or right as their skill directed them. But here he faced a man who fought in quite a different way, for Senor Zorro, it appeared, was as rooted to one spot as if unable to turn his face any other direction. He did not give an inch, nor did he advance, nor step to either side. Gonzalez attacked furiously, as was his custom, and he found the point of his blade neatly parried. He used more caution and tried tricks he knew, but they seemed to avail him nothing. He attempted to pass around the man before him, and the other's blade drove him back. He tried to retreat, hoping to draw the other out, but Senor Zorro stood his ground and forced Gonzalez to attack again. As for the highwayman, he did not except to put up a defense. Anger got the better of Gonzalez then, for he knew the corporal was jealous of him, and his tale of this fight would be told to all in the pueblo tomorrow, and so to travel up and down the length of El Camino Real. He attacked furiously, hoping to drive Senor Zorro off his feet and make an end of it, but he found that his attack ended as if against a stone wall. His blade turned aside, his breast crashed against that of his antagonist, and Senor Zorro merely threw his chest out and hurled him back a half a dozen steps. "Fight, Senor," Senor Zorro said. "Fight yourself, cutthroat and thief," the exasperated sergeant cried. "Don't stand like a piece of the hills, fool. Is it against your religion to take a step?" "You cannot taunt me into doing it," the highwayman replied, chuckling again. Sergeant Gonzalez realized then that he had been angry, and he knew that an angry man cannot fight with a blade as well as a man who controls his temper. So he became deadly cold now, and his eyes narrowed, and all boasting was gone from him. He attacked again, but now he was alert, seeking an unguarded spot through which he could thrust without courting disaster himself. He fenced as he had never fenced in his life before. He cursed himself for having allowed wine and food to rob him of his wind. From the front, from either side, he attacked, only to be turned back again, all his tricks solved almost before he tried them. He had been watching his antagonist's eyes, of course, and now he saw a change. They had seemed to be laughing through the mask, and now they had narrowed and seemed to send forth flakes of fire. "We have had enough of playing," Senor Zorro said. "It is time for punishment." And suddenly he began to press the fighting, taking on step after step, slowly and methodically going forward and forcing Gonzalez backward. The tip of his blade seemed to be a serpent's head with 1,000 tongues. Gonzalez felt himself at the other's mercy, but he gritted his teeth and tried to control himself and fought on. Now he was with his back against the wall, but in such a position that Senor Zorro could give him battle and watch the men in the corner at the same time. He knew the highwayman was playing with him. He was ready to swallow his pride and call upon the corporal and soldiers to rush in and give him aid. And then there came a sudden battering at the door, which the native had bolted. The heart of Gonzalez gave a great leap. Somebody was there wishing to enter. Whoever it was would think it peculiar that the door was not thrown open instantly by the fat landlord or his servant. Perhaps help was at hand. "We are interrupted, Senor," the highwayman said. "I regret it, for I will not have the time to give you the punishment you deserve, and will have to arrange to visit you another time. You are scarcely worth a double visit." The pounding at the door was louder now. Gonzalez raised his voice. "Ha! We have Senor Zorro here." "Poltroon!" the highwayman cried. His blade seemed to take on new life. It darted in and out with a speed that was bewildering. It caught 1,000 beams of light from the flickering candles and hurled them back. And suddenly it darted in and hooked itself properly, and Sergeant Gonzalez felt the sword torn from his grasp and saw it go flying through the air. "So!" Senor Zorro cried. Gonzalez awaited the stroke. A sob came into his throat that this must be the end instead of on a field of battle where a soldier wishes it. But no steel entered his breast to bring forth his life's blood. Instead, Senor Zorro swung his left hand down, passed the hilt of his blade to it, and grasped it beside his pistol's butt. and with his right hand he slapped Pedro Gonzalez across the cheek. "That for a man who mistreats helpless natives," he cried. Gonzalez roared in rage and shame. Somebody was trying to smash the door in now, but Senor Zorro appeared to give it little thought. He sprang back and sent his blade into his scabbard like a flash. He swept his pistol before him and thus threatened all in the long room. He darted to a window, sprang upon a bench. "Until a later time, senor," and then he went through the window as a mountain goat jumps through a cliff, taking his covering with him. It rushed and in rushed the wind and rain, and the candles went out. That is a selection from the first volume of Zorro, the complete Johnston McCulley, Volume 1. A little bit of a lengthy read, but I wanted to give you the first appearance of Zorro in there. This is the first of 6 volumes of the complete pulp adventures of Johnston McCulley, which are the complete adventures of Zorro. And there's 6 volumes. I have all 6. This is the first volume. Excellent. I had actually, the first story that's in this, it's got the main first story that he was in, The Curse of Capistrano, which was later retitled The Mark of Zorro. And that's what they title it in here. And it also has 2 shorts. It also has 2 short stories as well in it. I had never read The Curse of Capistrano before I read this before, or The Mark of Zorro, whichever you want to call it. But I found it was absolutely excellent. I've always enjoyed Zorro as a character, and I've seen various movies over the years, but I'd never read the source material. And I thought this June on the Range would be a good time to do it because this is sort of a Western. It takes place in around that time period, and there's just a lot more sword fighting than gun fighting, although there are some guns that take place, but they're mostly single shot weapons. But there's a little bit more sword fighting, and you've got a masked hero. He actually predated Superman and Batman by at least 10 years. And so he was kind of the first masked superhero. He didn't have any superpowers, but he was extremely skilled with the blade and the gun. He was a skilled horseman, a skilled fighter. He was very observant of everything around him. And he led a double life. I won't say as who, although surely everybody knows who Zorro is at this point. He's been around for over 100 years. And but just in case you haven't seen it and know who he is, I won't give it away. It's not given away till the very end of the story. The story involves 3 suitors for a girl who is the daughter of a man who's fallen out of favor with the governor, and her marrying Don Diego Vega, who's one of the main characters, would put him back in good standing because the Vegas were in such good standing with the governor. But Don Diego Vega is kind of a cad. He doesn't want to woo her or do any. He says he doesn't want to strum a guitar under her window or recite poetry to her or anything. He just wants a straight marriage, and she doesn't like that and wants to be wooed and all that. And another one is Captain of the Guard, Captain Ramon, and he is not such a nice guy, and he takes an interest in her, but he's not nearly the suitor that he should be. And then the third suitor is Zorro himself, who sneaks in to see her on several occasions, and whom she falls madly in love with because, of course, he's everything she wants a man to be. So you don't see till the end of who she wants to end up with at the. I mean, she wants to end up with Zorro, but because of her station in life and because of his place as a highwayman and sort of a rob the rich and give to the poor, uh, she can't expect to ever have a life with him. But that she said that once one of her family gave her love to someone, that it would never be given again. So she's stuck on Zorro, and he fights with the sergeant there that and then Don Diego comes in afterwards and kind of gives him a little bit of a ribbing about it, and like, oh, so did you take care of Zorro? Because he's always boasting about how he's going to. So it's really kind of funny, the interplay between Don Diego and Sergeant Gonzalez. And he they do different things to try to get the girl. She isn't isn't a cardboard cutout like you see sometimes in the pulps, because these were pulp stories to begin with. The first story that was novel length is was serialized in I think it was All Story, I believe, uh, and she was a fairly well developed character for not being in it a ton, but she had some spirit to her. Uh, so it was nice to see a female character that had a little bit of zip and stood up for herself, and because that was something that you didn't see a whole lot. And anyway, it gets towards the end, and he has sword fights and gun battles. He has races on with horses. He takes up for uh, the poor friars that get uh, injustices done to them, and he stands up for them, and he stands up for the poor, and he stands up for the natives, which is Native Americans, I'm assuming is what that is. He stands up for everyone that's downtrodden. He's a really great hero. All the people like him, and he always manages to stay one step ahead of the army and the governor. And he finally, um, there's a final battle towards the end, and it's just, I found it thrilling, to be honest. He takes on the governor and the Captain Ramon, and he gets into a situation that you don't think he's going to get out of, and then there's a resolution at the end that you didn't see coming, and just it was really thrilling, which is why I don't want to give away any of it, because I just kept finding myself wanting to read on and on. And it was a really, really good story. The extra stories were good as well. They were very short, about 30 pages. There was two others in this volume, of which again there's 6 volumes, which collect everything that he ever wrote for Zorro, and just a really great series. Uh, Excellent. I will say that he reveals himself at the end of the Mark of Zorro, which then in the other stories, people still don't know who he is, so they kind of retcon that a little bit. You get the impression that he didn't write it with sequels in mind, but there was just such a demand for it because it was so good that it looked like he had to kind of retcon it a little bit and make it to where no one knew who he was again. But the other stories were nice short stories. Uh, I I mean, they weren't as thrilling right off the bat as the Mark of Zorro, but it really was a thrilling adventure story. And it was a Western. I will say that just based on what it is just a little bit different kind of Western for this June on the Range that we're doing here. Uh, so I thought I'd do something a little bit different. Zorro fit the bill. The only complaint I have is not about the stories themselves, it's about the editing in the book. There are a lot of editorial mistakes. I mean, not a lot, but enough to be noticeable. And I thought that Bold Venture Press could have done a little bit better editing job. I mean, it's just stuff where there's punctuation missing or punctuation where it shouldn't be there, or they use a wrong word that you can tell it should be what it should be. Uh, it's the kind of things you probably see in the original pulps. So they may have been reprinted exactly as it appeared, but um, I just think they could have done a little bit better editing job because I could have done a better editing job because I noticed all the things that were wrong. But it doesn't get in the way of a great story, a great pulp yarn. It's an excellent story. All three of them are that are in this volume. I recommend the other volumes as well. You can't get them in ebooks, but you can get these. This is volume 1. America's first superhero in his original adventures. And he is kind of the first superhero, but he's also a Western hero. And I think that it's fantastic, and you should really give Zorro a try. The Mark of Zorro is an excellent story, excellent novel, and I hope you'll give it a shot. So thanks for hanging out with me this week, and I'll see you next week for more June on the Range.